So moving on to the slope formula. Again, some of you may have seen this, some of you may not, may be seeing it for the first time. The slope, another way I like the word gradient, okay? The gradient, how steep or how flat that line or graph is. And next year we'll start getting into curves and how we're going to find the slope of that. But for now, we're going to be using the terminology slope. We can always find the slope from the line. All I need is 2 points, okay? Therefore, using some information from those 2 points, I can find out how steep that line is or how steep it is going the other way as well, okay? So the description of it is, of the slope, which we have touched on earlier on in the year, is that it's this rise, how far you're going up over how far you've gone along, okay? So it's that rise over the run. Couple of important points I've put there. The slope of a vertical line, because there is no run, therefore the run is 0, therefore it's going to be undefined. Whenever you've got a fraction with a 0 in the bottom, that means that number is undefined in our real number system for now. The slope of a horizontal line, which is going to be here, I don't have any rise, so that's 0, and my run is infinite, so therefore it's going to be 0. So there's just a bit of a graphic there. The formula that we're going to use is y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. The thing I want to stress here, it does not matter which point you use for point 1 or point 2, but it's very important that you are consistent. So for example, if I have this as x1, this one has to be y1. I can't change that to y2. And then this one would be x2 and y2. They have to be consistent. The ordered pairs, those numbers have a relationship. They cannot move away from each other, okay? Slope and gradient of line. This one is increasing, this first one. And the way I like to think about it is that could be converted into a tick pretty quickly, okay? So that line going in that direction is a positive thing. A tick is a positive thing. Therefore, if it slopes in that direction, then it's going to be increasing. Horizontal line, just like the horizon that you'd look at where the sun sets and rises, that's where we get the terminology of horizontal, and therefore the slope of this one, as we said before there, that was 0, okay? This other one, decreasing, and I don't really have a trick for the decreasing one, it's just the opposite of increasing, it's as simple as that. So increasing is a tick, okay? Think about that, it's the tick. Tick, therefore that line is increasing. Decreasing is obviously the opposite. And the vertical line is undefined slope. Okay. So the first example we're going to do is find the slope of the line that passes through the point A, which is -3, -1, and the point B, which is -5, 1, using the formula that we were given earlier. I'm going to do this 2 different ways, and that's more to show you that it doesn't matter which one I call x1 and which one I call x2. Okay, and it might get a bit confusing, so if you do get a bit lost in it, just follow the first one and just trust that it's going to, no matter what happens, it's going to be the same. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to say A is my x1, x1, y1, and I'm going to say B is my x2, y2, and therefore that point, my x1 is going to be -3, and my y1 is going to be -1, and my B is -5 and 1, okay? So now I just simply put it into the formula. My y2 comes from the 1 there, and I'm always going to put the negative, and then I'm going to put brackets. It's kind of like I'm going to do that every single time because the negatives are going to get me stuck, okay? So the next one I'm looking for is my y1, which is a -1, and that's the reason because that'll turn it into a positive. My next one I'm looking for my x2, which is -5, and I'm going to do the subtraction, and then I'm going to find out what it is my x1 is, which is -3. So I'm just going to tidy this up a bit. 1 + 1 on -5 + 3, and that's going to give me 2 over -2, which is going to give me -1. My second one, I'm going to write it as, I'm going to change it now so that my A is my x2 and y2, and B is going to be x1 and y1. So I'm going to write those numbers there, that the A is still -3 and -1, and B is still -5 and 1. So my slope is going to be, I'm looking for y2, and this time it's going to be -1. Again, I'm going to put my negative and then a bracket. I'm looking for my y1, which is my 1 over here. So I'm going to write the 1 there. The bottom, I'm looking for my x2, which is my -3, minus bracket, whatever x1 is. So that's going to be my -5. So I've got -1, -1 on the top, and I've got -3, and that's going to turn into a positive on the bottom. So I'm going to end up with -2 on the top, and I'm going to end up with 2 on the bottom. So again, I end up with -1. So I just wanted to do that exercise. So it doesn't matter which ones I use, they're always going to end up being that same slope value, okay? They're still that same number, no matter what I do. But I cannot stress this enough, they have to be consistent. If you're using that as x1, that pair need to stay together, okay? So we find the slope of the line that passes through the point A and B using the formula. So it's just as simple as I am going to use this one as x1, and that's y1. This is going to be x2, y2. And maybe for the first few, we get in a habit of doing that, writing down that x1 and y1. So I'm looking for y2, which is going to be -8. And again, draw brackets. Before you even put a number down, before you do anything, put the brackets there. Looking for y1, it's going to be -6, and that's why, because it's a negative. Very important. x2, I've got my -5. I'm going to subtract, and again, put my brackets down. My x1, which is -7. So I've got -8 plus 6 on -5 plus 7, because I've got the double negatives there. I've got -2 on the top. I've got -5 plus 7, which is going to give me 2, which again happens to be -1. So the next example, example 3, a line passing through the points 1, 2, and 4, t has a slope is equal to 5. Find the value of t. So this one's a little bit different. We've got to work backwards here. So we've got to find the value of that t value. Okay, so again, I'm going to write down what x1 and y1 is, and I'm going to say x2 and y2. Just because I've got an unknown there, doesn't really matter. So the first thing I want to do is I want to write m is equal to, and I'll write the formula down. I've got y2 minus y1 on x2 minus x1. Okay, get in a habit until you know what it is. I want you to write down that formula so it becomes second nature. Okay, it's that mathematical fluency, just so we know exactly what we're doing. It's like when we speak English, we just know exactly what we're doing. So I know some values here, so let's plug them in. I know what my m value is, it's 5, because they told me that. My y2, which is, I don't know what that is yet, but it's a t, isn't it? So then I've got minus, and again, I'm going to put the brackets there. I'm looking for my y1. My y1 is 2. I'm looking for x2 now, which is -4, minus, what is my x1, which is going to be 1. So let's just clean this up a bit. I've got t minus 2 over -4 minus 1, which is going to get me -3, and I've got 5. So let's do a little bit of solving now. So I'm going to multiply both sides by -3, and that's going to get me -15 is equal to t minus 2. What am I going to do now? I'm going to add 2 to both sides, and I'm going to be left with t is equal to -13. So the t value is -13. Okay. This next one, we're looking at find the slope of the line that passes through the point 2, -6, and the origin using the gradient of rise over run. So I'm going to start again. I'm going to write down what the formula is, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, if I look at this, one thing I want you to note is this here, that's the point really, isn't it? So there's two ways I can do this. I could choose to have the origin being 0, 0 as that x1 and y1, or I can have it as x2, y2. So that means it'll be 0 minus whatever it is, either the 2 or the -6. But if I make my origin that y1, so this, the origin being x1, y1, and my point A as x2, y2, I'm going to be doing something take 0, which just makes it so much easier. So I'm going to put that in. I'm going to say my y value, which is -6. I'm going to write it out just so you can see it. It's going to be -0, and my x2, which is the 2 minus a 0, which doesn't change anything. I've got -6 on 2, which is going to get me to -3. Okay, that was so much easier than well, it's not too much easier, but it's a lot easier than I'd have to make some negatives and I could get lost and get stuck on it all. Okay, so there we have slope of a line.